Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this first BNB Tech Community Call. So the aim of this call is to bring back the BNB Chain community and to be really decentralized and to really see the viewpoint of different projects or different builders on top of BNB Chain. So today for the first call, we have the chance to have like some key partners like infrastructure partner or validators as well. So today we have BNB Chain tech team, which is like me and Victor as well, which are representing like the tech team of BNB Chain. Then we have our partner NodeReal. We have Trenches as well, which is a key project on BNB Chain. And we have like Storgy plus Legend, which is a big validator on BNB Chain. So maybe you can present a bit each of you. So I will start with NodeReal. Maybe Jimmy, you can start presenting a bit yourself and NodeReal as well.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Jimmy. Actually, I'm from NodeReal. I'm a senior solution architect. My focus is to provide the best, the blockchain technology to our customers within the BNB ecosystem and other blockchains as well.
Cool. Ben, you want to have a small intro? You are still muted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, sure. Let me add a little bit color, right? So I think I'm Ben, right? I'm the currently the NodeReal co-founder and also CEO of the NodeReal right now. As Jimmy mentioned, we're providing one-stop infrastructure to cover not only the typical service and node service, which is quite a lot of the developers are familiar with that, which is quite similar as Alchemy Infuser service, right, for the BNB chain and also a lot of other blockchains as well. We are also like one of the key contributors for the BNB chain, right? So I think you can see we are quite active in the BEP and also contributor for the BNB sidechain. And actually, very good news want to share to everyone is that last year we also like built the first application chain, right, based on the BNB technology stack, which is fancy chain, and now it's a mainlayer. We're very happy to use the BNB technology and also contribute for this ecosystem. And thanks for the invitation, and really glad to join this first community call.
Great, thanks. Danny, you want to go on maybe?
Sure. This is Danny Chong, co-founder and current running CEO of Trenches. We're asset tracking and a management protocol on BNB Chain. We're live since 2021 June, and since then, we have gone on to complete quite a number of features and improvements, including V2, and also currently just moving on to the Ethereum chain. I think we are well known for distinct offering in terms of different product. In terms of asset management over on BNB Chain, we are also known for like a kind of like the node management over on BNB Chain, and with that we try to bring our kind of like values, knowledge, and what's actually we have learned from the BNB Chain into Ethereum chain, and also trying to do liquid staking to compete with the bigger giants that we know currently, like Lido, Rocket Pool, and so on and so forth. So like it's just 1 month for us over there, but our roots are still with BNB Chain, and very happy to be with everyone today on this tech community call. I think what I really wanted to highlight is that the paperwork and documentation that's prepared is very precise, very detailed, and whoever prepared this, I think, did a very good job.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, I mean, you are as well like a big validator, so it's important to have like your viewpoint as well on the token economy potentially. So maybe Kevin, you can go on. So you're not yet necessarily on BNB Chain, but what brings you here?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Kevin LeFew. I work with Storage. Storage is the leading enterprise-grade decentralized cloud storage platform. We're a distributed network that consists of over 20,000 uncorrelated endpoints across the world. So those are data centers, individuals that are sharing their excess hard drive capacity. And we aggregate that and we form a distributed, parallelized, decentralized storage network that's compatible with the Amazon S3 API. Storage today is built on EVM compatible architecture. And we're here today to support and talk about the launch of Greenfield, which was recently announced from Binance, and talk about efforts in the decentralized storage community throughout the call today.
Great. And we have Legend as well, which is a validator. So for privacy purpose, you might not necessarily like enter the discussion, but he's here with us today as well to potentially ask or raise questions. So he's a big validator on the BNB ecosystem since day one as well. And finally, we have Victor, which is from the BNB Chain tech team. Victor, you want to say a small introduction, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yes, I'm Victor from the BNB Chain, and primarily helping the community to adopt new technologies, new features, and working on the different BAPs with the community to bring value for the ecosystem and for different projects.
Great. So talking about BAPs, like here are the agenda basically. So we're first going to go through what's happening on Beacon Chain with some technical update and like especially linked to the staking as well and the decentralization of Beacon Chain. Then to go through a bit like the latest update and discussion about the BSC BAP, which is quite interesting as well and have some specific impact for our validators which are here today. And then we'll go through a more in-depth discussion about the recent white paper that we have released about Greenfield and what it can bring to the decentralized storage platform. So just to start with the Beacon Chain, so there is a BEP which is ongoing that has been in testnet since 1 month or even more, which is quite drastically changing like the way Beacon Chain is working and embedded with BSC as well. So the main motivation behind, for everyone to understand, is basically currently the validator entrance and exit is managed by a fixed set of validator, which is permission. So it's not open for everyone to join as a Beacon Chain validator. So this is something that is kind of risky as well from a security point of view, since BSC security stack and governance is based on Beacon Chain. Like we need to make sure that the Beacon Chain is open as well and decentralized for the validator. Especially that now the decommissioning of the DEX has been finalized. There's as well more like computational power for the security and for the governance focus on Beacon Chain mainly. So just for people to know, so there's potentially like a change in the staking mechanism for Beacon Chain, which is going to be proposed. Basically, following what's happening on the BSC, we're going to replicate it on the Beacon Chain as well, where a validator can openly join based on the rank of the BNB stake that they have. So the aim is really to be more open and provide an economic security as well for the Beacon Chain. There is one main impact that is probably going to impact as well the reward for like Node-RED as a validator or Trenches or Legends. So maybe you can jump in as well and give your feedback on it, is that initially the proposal has set a ratio to take, for example, 10% of the reward from the smart chain validator in order to bring those rewards to the Beacon Chain validator to give them some incentive from the security layer perspective. So this might potentially impact the reward that is happening for the smart chain validator. So I don't know if there is any discussion that we want to have on top of this.
If I can start the ball rolling, is this 10% temporary or is this permanent? And also, I think interestingly, you know, like who are we expecting to come and take up the other 21 slots over on the BC? I mean, we put there like what's going to be the business case actually for the development of BC?
Correct. So those 10% are not fixed. So it's something that can be governed by the Beacon Chain validator. So it might feel like it's obliged, let's say, towards the BSC validator because they might not have a say towards it. So definitely it might be a high number to push at the beginning. The aim or the target is really to bring more community involvement within the security and the governance, which is the focus of the Beacon Chain. So the way to basically balance as well the reward between the BSC validator, which today feels more decentralized than what we have in the Beacon Chain. But without having this decentralization on the Beacon Chain as well, it's kind of a single point of failure that we might face from a decentralization point of view. I personally feel.
Yeah, I have like several comments here, right? One is we need to consider the 10% is we need to try to understand why we get 10%, right? Is it because of the incentive of the Beacon Chain? And it is because of the the revenue model in the backend chain or the BSC, right? So we need to get a little bit tokenomics analysis for this part. Otherwise, it will be quite difficult to conclude why 10%, right? Or instead of like 5% or 20%, right? So this one we need to be carefully designed for this one. And secondly, I think the major driver for this part is for the decentralization of the BC or BSC or BNB chain together, right? At the same time, when the Greenfield later we will discuss, right? When Greenfield is coming, and how this one will connect with Greenfield, right? So I think this one we may be, in the direction, right? We absolutely need to consider, because hopefully all these like Bacon chain, BSC, Greenfield can, with this kind of different validator group, right, we can improve that decentralization. Yeah, I think direction-wise, it's good. The only thing is how can we connect all of these three networks, right, together, and think about this kind of different incentive round.
Right. So hearing both of you out is mostly like trying to understand, maybe have more output of like what would be the real impact of those 10% for the beacon chain validator, like from a reward point of view, and as well the impact for the smart chain validator point of view, like what is exactly the impact before choosing this specific number. You would basically like to have a more in-depth analysis of what's going to happen with this 10%, correct?
Yeah, because I think now it's a bit figurative. I think we don't really know also like what's going to be kind of the running APR on BC, right? Who's coming in, and actually what's really being done also on the BC. I mean, we have really put it broadly for security and governance focus, right? But maybe I think it comes also much clearer when all those numbers and also like the actual plan is kind of reviewed.
Yeah.
All right, correct. Okay, I think we'll take this back to the team as well, like to bring more and to bring the discussion as well on the BNB forum. So we're going to create a slot as well, so for people to discuss about it, and we'll try to bring maybe some statistic about like the specific impact it has, to really understand like why this 10%, like how it can be managed as well, to see, because like definitely knowing that there's already this 10% burn for the smart chain validator, if we add as well this 10% cutoff reward, it can potentially impact drastically the APR that's is mostly maybe driven for the retail user, which are mostly looking at the number and not necessarily at the security aspect of it. Good. So I think we can. You want to add something, or we can close this topic?
I'm good. I think if you take down those points, should be able to move ahead.
Okay, we'll try to push out those like information in the coming days, weeks. Now we can go to the smart chain, right? So beacon chain is a bit smaller right now than the smart chain. So smart chain has like 3-4 different proposals ongoing. So the first one is the cross-chain relayer management. So the motivation behind it is really to enhance the security, especially after what happened Q4 last year with the breach exploitation. So really we want to add more extra security layer to the system and have a more governance-based as well manager of the oracle and the relayer, which are happening between smart chain and beacon chain. So really this BEP is mostly about the security, to basically introduce a new governance for the relayer manager, where relayer can be whitelisted and registered to a single relayer in a specific relayer hub Genesis contract. So this is something that is really mainly impacting the security of the relayer between smart chain and beacon chain, based on the learning lesson that we had due to the hack that happened last year, unfortunately. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything to this specific one, but it seems quite needed in order to advance in the security aspect.
May I ask who are the relayer managers?
The relayer manager, you said?
Yeah.
So maybe not real Jimmy can help on this, because if I'm right, you might be one of the manager as well, correct? Am I wrong?
I think it makes sense to have the relayer managers to actually do KYC on who's going to be doing the relay, right? It's just that I wonder who's going to be doing it, and whether this is going to be broadcast.
Go ahead.
So just to quickly check, this one is majorly for the if my memory is correct, right? There's BC relay to BSC and BSC like Oracle relay to the BC, right?
Correct.
And so which means previously the relay anyone can play relay, right? And because of the exploit, it looks already closed quite a long time. So for this purpose, it will introduce a new relay opportunities. Is that the purpose for this one?
Exactly. So there's
Gotcha.
already existing set of relayer, and basically the existing set of relayer can potentially add new ones if they want to.
Gotcha. I think this one we should do it, right? Because absolutely, but personally, I did not have a detail for this part, right? But considering last time we do have BNB Chain do have this kind of exploit, right? And there are a lot of changes there. And in the Greenfield, I believe, based on my understanding, right, there's also have a relay technology. So just wondering, right? So I think this one maybe I don't know how many technology will be reused from this part to the Greenfield relay, right? So absolutely, we should have this one. Yeah. Hopefully, in this BEP, we can get more technology detail, especially maybe we need to get more. I would suggest we should get more like security, right? Can help us for this one. This is super sensitive one.
Yeah, so people can already see like on the BEP, there's quite a good detailed technical aspect into it. But definitely we should look into like if we're going to reuse kind of the same security logic or layer for Greenfield, relayer between Greenfield and BSC network, because definitely we should reuse what we've done already.
Just curious, I think we do have a Cosmos guy on the call as well. I remember
he's going to join a bit later. It's a bit too early for him. He's going to join for the second session.
Got you. I think that because this one previously, I think it's based on the Cosmos. I don't know whether we can collaborate with Cosmos ecosystem for this one as well, right? So because this is quite a sensitive areas, I believe.
Definitely, it's definitely a key aspect of bridging between BNB ecosystem, because you have a lot of ecosystem coming on.
Yeah, I think this one we should absolutely make it happen, right? But we need to work together and spend more time, I believe. But to be honest, Norio is not experts on this one, but hopefully we can get more like real experts to go through these details there. Yeah.
Sure. We're going to try to push again a discussion on the forum for like security experts to discuss about it. Coming to the next one, which is about native staking that has been pushed to BNB Smart Chain. So the native staking had basically allowing BNB holder to stake on BSC side directly without going to the beacon chain, mainly for dApp to be able to launch like staking service more easily. Unfortunately, there's a specific transfer gas limit value that is set a bit too low, which is basically not enabling deployment of proxy in order to utilize this function. So there's a PR that has been pushed by the community developer to basically increase the limit rates to 5,000 gas. So it has been reviewed as well by different security audit team that we are working with. And basically there is no risk associated to it. So in conclusion, we are probably going to push this PR in the coming days or months or weeks, potentially weeks, to basically enable a bit of usage of the native staking on BSC. So it's quite, as long as it has been verified by our security audit team, I think it's good to go ahead with this. Then we can move to one of the last BEP for Smart Chain, which is really due to, let's say, the motivation is really to bring more stability to the network. So as you know, being a validator for BNB Smart Chain is quite complex from a hardware point of view as well, to be able to run it and to validate blocks at the expected time. So the motivation is really due to the delay mechanism that we have currently that might take longer than 3 expected seconds. So basically the network might take more time as well to recover in case there's a validator which is missing a block or delaying as well the proposal of the block. So really the improvement of the stability of this BEP is really to update our parallel consensus to really make it more stable and efficient. Basically, with this BEP is going to rewrite the calculation of the algorithm to have a better management of like who needs to commit the block or not, and basically be able to find out faster if the block has been committed on time or not, and then slash as well the potential validator without affecting the ongoing blocks, which is going to ease as well the recovery of the network. So this is probably going to impact all the validator in order to be able to validate blocks without being slow, basically.
Sorry, if I can ask a very quick question, maybe not very like something that we can do now. But I mentioned before like DVTs happening on Ethereum chain, right? Is this something that we are planning to adopt actually on BNB Smart Chain in the future?
So distributed validator technology is something that is quite interesting, definitely. I think that potentially we should maybe set up a discussion around like if we want to move it as well to BNB ecosystem, because it could be quite interesting for the stability, I believe, for the validator stability.
Yeah, so from our research, I guess the top two guys that at least the Ethereum Foundation is working closely with is SSV, where they work on the layer 0 level, and also Obo, where they work more on a middleware kind of the setup. So maybe like it's something that can start us off.
I think maybe it can bring as well more decentralization. So I think it's a topic that we could like kick off within the BNB forum to see like developers are potentially thinking as well, like if it could be something that could be added as well to BNB chain.
Okay.
Someone else wanted to add anything, or we can move ahead? I think we can go. Just a few ongoing topics as well within the community. So there's quite a lot of discussion regarding the token economy as well on BNB chain between different projects and different validators. So there's quite an ongoing discussion about potentially lowering the gas unit cost for the users to be able to run transaction on BNB chain. So there's potentially a discussion between like lowering it from 5 GWh to 3 or even 2 GWh as well. So this is something that could potentially like impact as well the validator reward. Besides impacting the reward, it could as well impact the activity on BNB chain, because lower transaction fees should as well like help to attract more users, especially for like our gamify project, DeFi project as well. So I think it could be something that is quite needed for the growth of BNB Smart Chain. I don't know if there's any comment from the validators or even from the DeFi project like Trenches, if you feel that this could help as well, like from a user attraction point of view. Especially knowing that even, sorry to add, but some validators are already adding, let's say, some specific features such as private transactions, or another validator is as well adding some specific fee reduction based on specific logic. So this could maybe leverage up as well, like the field of validator to be able to have as many transactions as possible per block.
I'm just thinking like whether if we lower kind of like the gas fees, whether we can actually get more transactions. I kind of like think that the lower the fees may not be that significant to getting more transactions. I'm not sure, but this is what it is. And I think openly to say this, right, within BSC, we are also not really encouraging MEV behaviors and so on. So if we look at it from that perspective, when we are lowering the gas fee, what does it mean in terms of kind of like overall rewards to the chain and also to the validators that's doing the validation work?
Definitely, like MEVs is like a big topic that is brought up by different validator, like on and on. There's even like some discussion happening on the GitHub. So potentially it would be something that maybe the validator community should maybe bring up together as well, like to push it. I don't know what's like Node-REIT's validator viewpoint as well on it, or Legend, if feel free to add as well. But definitely, like I think beside as well, like adding more retail, it would help as well, I think, scale projects to fee delegate as well for the users. Because as you know, like a lot of projects are delegating the fees for the user. So this potentially, I think, could help them to increase the number of like transactions they can do instead of maybe batching out of transactions. They could maybe like save information more frequently on chain in order to like be faster and more secure as well.
Yeah, maybe I can ask also like what people here thinks of MEV service, because I feel that now, to be honest, at this juncture, right, regulators are coming on to CX, and I think they might in future look at chains as well. You know, like although MEV is so-called a tech that push, you know, certain data points or sending ahead. In traditional finance, this is actually known as front running, and if it's kind of like this activity is related to putting in orders ahead of other people because of a bribe or because of higher gas fees or and so on, right? I'm just mildly worried whether this is also a consideration point. Hence, that period when there's some form of MEV that's coming through on BSC from certain validators, I was interested and also mildly concerned on what's the outcome of this.
Definitely. It is definitely a concern, like especially like as you say, different validator like basically looking how to as well like enhance the reward to basically attract as well more retail like delegation, or to basically be more profitable from an economical point of view. So there's definitely some key discussion that the community like should have among the validators. I don't know what's maybe Jimmy, if you have a viewpoint from NodeReal's perspective, or Ben, feel free to jump in as well, because like even NodeReal is providing specific services for transaction privacy. So this is as well kind of, I don't want to say unfair towards validator which are not providing it, but it's as well like adding a specific feature to NodeReal validator compared to other validators. So it's already could be seen as a specific like additional service from a block building perspective.
Yeah, let me share a little bit comments there. But previously, NodeReal really provide the direct route service, right? Which is like something like privacy transaction. But we do publish all of these kind of the rules, right? How do we like wrap this one? But this one does not impact the gas fee, because we are still follow the gas fee guideline from this community,
Right.
Which means we still follow the 5G. The only thing is, we want to make sure, for example, some traders, they do not want to their trades, right, like impacted by others. However, this one does not introduce a lot of the new trades, right? And to be honest, recently we already stopped this service because, it's not just, it's not only for this, the usage is very few, but also it does not introduce a lot of the transactions, right? I think here is maybe we need to understand what's the key transaction, or what's the key demand for this low down this transaction. Is it majorly for the typical DeFi trading related stuff, or is majorly from the gaming, right? So I know BNB Chain may have a large ecosystem for the gaming NFT related, right? So they're absolutely looking for the very low gas fee, right? Because they have so many active users. I believe BNB Chain so far still have close to 1 million daily active users, right? That's quite large. So gas fee for this kind of adoption will be challengeable. And but for the DeFi, it's really sensitive for that one. I'm not sure about that one, right? So maybe we need to get a more data analysis for this part, understand a little bit, right? And furthermore, is as we all of us know, right? BNB Chain try to do the scalability right now. So more transaction will be moved to these either like ZK or even like Greenfield right now, right? So I think actually Greenfield transaction, based on my understanding right now, right, it's also happening in the BSC. If later we really go to the large scale application, right, which means a lot of transaction happening in the BSC, not only the DeFi related, but also storage or data related application. So when that happening, right, we may need to think about how do we decrease the gas fee here, right? Because the transaction will be huge. But now if you go to the BSC, the whole transaction, the total transaction is not very much, to be honest. And
compared to the block size, compared compared to the block size that we have, exactly, like our validator are able to handle more transactions.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. Is it perfect time to do that one, or we can wait and see? But absolutely, we should review this one. But I would suggest that we should better get more like data analysis for this one. I'm a real data guy, right? So far, sometimes I can find in the BNB community, right? As a one member, for me, I should contribute as well, right, for this part. And we are not following the very data-driven way, right, to do this. Whenever we get this decision, what's the potential impact considering the whole ecosystem, right? Not only impacts the DeFi, but also the going forward maybe like a greenfield, right, and also like the side chain, etc. So what's the potential impacts here? And absolutely decreasing this one is it will have a lot of impacts, right, for the stability of the network, and it absolutely will introduce a lot of users, right? But how can we get this balance? How can we avoid like some of the scam or like wash trading, etc. Right? So we need to consider all of these areas. Then we can make this decision.
Okay, so I think the key point of all of this is get more data before like we make any key decision to make sure that the community, like our validator, is well informed of the decisions.
Yeah, I would suggest like that, because so far it's so difficult to make this kind of decision just based on this, right? From 5 GUA to 3 GUA, it's quite difficult for the community. I don't know whether like, for example, Tranches or Legend, whether you guys have any like data analysis for the whole chain right now.
Definitely we don't have at this juncture. And I think probably the chain will have a better understanding of like what projects or what segment of the protocols within existing community now that they really want to push. And then it's a business decision as well as a logic decision to see whether they want to reduce the gas fees. I mean, for like at this juncture, there really isn't, like what you say, too much data points to justify this reduction. And probably we want to have, if we want to do this, we should definitely support it with the different points on wanting to do this.
Great. I think we had a good discussion on those 3 points here. As well for MVP, I think we need to add more discussion on the forum as well, so we can probably kick off like a specific category for it. So I think we are done now for all the BEP on the Beacon chain or smart chain. So now we can finally jump into what everyone is probably waiting for, which is the BNB Greenfield. So there's this new white paper that the team has released recently, and we basically wanted to have this opportunity as well during this tech call today to describe it a bit more from a technical point of view, and as well try to brainstorm together like how everyone can play a role within this ecosystem and these new solutions. So I will give as well like the speaker to Victor, which is going to help a bit more describe it from a technical point of view.
Absolutely. So the idea of Greenfield essentially is to provide a decentralized programmable storage. And so given the ecosystem now, what we all like used to believe or used to work with is mostly decentralized storage. And the programmable part was we couldn't do it on chain, and for the most part, if it was done at all, this was done on the off-chain, some kind of application layer. And for the main part, the decentralized storage itself was also used like more of an archive. Let's back up the human history, let's back up internet, NFTs, something that doesn't change. And the idea that was interestingly brought like during the discussions in the community that okay, so this is fine, but how do we actually build the next application for the users, for the retail on this? And essentially you can't, because eventually the way it will work, you would have some kind of decentralized storage, but it will have to have a centralized application, because you cannot have a decentralized on-chain application talking to or communicated to the decentralized storage. And Greenfield, in a way, focuses on this problem. There are many improvements around billing and around usability and security, but conceptually how it's different, it is different around that you can now program your storage as a smart contract on the BNB Smart Chain. And this is something that is, although sort of like simple to understand, and why haven't we done this before, it actually involved quite a lot of engineering, and also like sort of like thinking shift in terms of let's move more and more on chain. Let's try to get like disconnect from this off-chain connectors and everything that is starts to grow around the blockchain, and it seems like inevitable part of the blockchain development. But Greenfield, with introduction of on-chain programmability of storage, which is naturally EVM compatible, so you can use the same Solidity contracts as and security extensions and everything like the libraries that everyone uses in terms of building the most secure programs on the blockchain. And now you can actually like interact with the storage and create new business cases. So this is what we need to put in mind. This is how we want to see and to be the vision of the BNB Greenfield. And the little bit and under the hood, so to speak. So we touched a little bit the layer part before. So the communication between BSC, which is the application level of the Greenfield, they would communicate through the layers on both parts. And so this is, I guess it will be similar, like in terms of something that would happen with the BSC versus Beacon chain. Essentially, we want to replicate and reuse the same secure methods that already have been proven secure and not to invent new ones. But on the storage level itself, it also like creates a different groups of stakeholders. So one of is the validator, and validator is similar to like any blockchain. What they do is they create and govern the transactions into the blocks. So just like any other blockchain, but what is in a way too early, I think. Yeah. What is different is that so the data itself is not on chain. It is stored by the storage providers or SPs here with the puddles. And what is stored on the blockchain is the metadata and the permission table. So essentially, what the files are, where they stored, how they're stored in terms of security, in terms of replication level, and also who can actually use them. And this is very different from the existing blockchain, the existing storage provider, decentralized storage, where the data is either private or either public. There is some granularity to the whatever you can set, but you couldn't really get this update changeable permission set where you could say this file will be allowed to view for this user and for this amount of time, and then the permissions are revoked. So this is very similar, like if we think about something like Dropbox feature set or Google Docs, where you can share different applications or different users with different set of permissions, and then they could essentially operate and eventually for the application themselves to create new use cases and business models to monetize the data itself, but also to create like even the next some kind of document, decentralized editing application. So we have validators and we have storage providers, and the connection between those two is essentially the validators also are responsible to make sure that the data is also stored by the storage providers. So they challenge the storage providers once in a while to see if the data is indeed there. And the interesting part, the storage provider itself also doesn't know if it is user or validator. So it's the same, the validator acts as a user, so they cannot like create different like forking if it's validator or if it's user do something else, because validator essentially downloads a piece of data and then checks if the properties of this file matches the properties that is written on the as a metadata on the blockchain. So like checksum, like different like file size, like different kind of stuff. And in a way, the validators here play important role both in terms of validating the blockchain itself and making it secure, but also as a data sort of like monitoring system to see that the data is really there. And naturally, there's incentivization layer on both sides of this, so the validator gets rewarded for everything they do. Next slide. If we look a little bit on the comparison, so this is taken from the public article by Nodrio recently published, and so here we comparing a little bit Greenfield to other storage to other decentralized storage providers. Yeah.
If you want to add anything on the slide, Jimmy, like feel free to jump in as well, since I think your team was probably working on this specific article, right?
Yeah, I think maybe Vic, maybe I can dig a little bit deeper into this diagram, this comparison. So for the Greenfield, I think we did a comparison from the data redundancy to the tokens. So I think first, all of them has a token. So the Greenfield, we do have the BNB token as a utility token. So anyone with BNB can start using the Greenfield directly by deposit BNB token to the Greenfield. And for the data availability proof, I think Greenfield actually is sort of proof of challenge. So Vic, you just mentioned that the validator is going to check the data is whether it is available. And this kind of the checking, if any storage service provider is not behaving honestly, the storage service provider will be punished economically to guarantee the security. And of course, the data persistent mechanism, actually, the Greenfield is based on the contract-based, and which is a little bit different from the Arweave. Actually, Arweave itself, all the data is actually saved on the blockchain itself. But for the Greenfield, the data, whether using upgrade to the upload the file to the network, actually is saved in the storage service provider. And the data protection, I think the Greenfield from day one, we're going to support the full access control. So at the same time, we can support a kind of the data ownership. So all of these actually are going to be implemented in the day one. And for the Faircoin and Airweave, either it depends on the third-party applications like the AirFS or any other service providers, but also users may depend on some kind of the encryption by users. But the Greenfield, I think this kind of feature is from the day one as well. So you can users are able to protect the data with very user-friendly method. And because the data is actually saved on the blockchain itself, so it is not deletable. But for other solutions, we do have the functionality to delete the file. And from the programmability perspective, the Greenfield actually is EVM compatible on the BSC via the relayer network. So we just saw the diagram shared by Vic. Actually, anyone can develop the DApps on the BSC and it will be measured to the Greenfield blockchain. And the Faircoin, they are building the FVM, and I think it will be ready. I think the testnet will be ready very soon. I'm sorry, the mainnet will be ready in March, but still not yet. Airweave, the smart weave is already online already. The data accessibility, I think the Greenfield provide the native data access APIs. Actually, it's a developer-friendly design. Of course, NodeReal actually is working on the client as well. So we are going to support the SDK and API, RESTful APIs in the future. And user account, I think, Greenfield actually is fully integrated with the BSC. So users are just use the same ID as the BSC, and just like the BSC and Ethereum. The Filecoin, they need to use the Filecoin chain address in the wallet. Airweave, the same thing. And the storage it actually is based on Ethereum. And the billing, I think the Greenfield is going to support the streaming payment, just the pay as it uses. It's very flexible. And Faircoin, the users has to make the storage retrieval deal on the chain to upload or download the files. And Airweave, because they are trying to save the day permanently forever, so you have to pay once and store it for a long time. And storage actually is is defined by the storage team by themselves.
So
yeah,
so we can see that there's quite a lot of different features that is added to potentially Greenfield, which is differentiating from the other. So from a maybe business point of view, or like user perspective, like, or how do you think, like maybe like Storage, do you have any like maybe lesson learned like with all of what you've done already, and like what is kind of the pain point as well of this decentralized storage industry, and how Greenfield might potentially like reply to such answers?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And obviously Storage has been in this space probably longest on the list here. And we have learned a lot in terms of both network architecture and kind of going to market and attracting developers. One of the things that we think is critical is compatibility, a compatibility layer with the S3 API. Today, most applications use the S3 API, which is creating buckets, putting objects in buckets, streaming them and deleting them. And that kind of standard reference pattern is important to support for developers, so they don't have to change their existing file system. They can just migrate to a distributed solution and then get the benefits of what distributed systems provide, like parallelism, better economics, better security through encryption and erasure coding, and other features. And so there's a lot of learnings that we've had at Storage over the years, and happy to go into any of those specifically.
No, definitely. There's a lot of lessons that we can learn. Go ahead, Victor.
And how do you, Kevin, how do you see Storage can collaborate, or like how currently this is, we have a lot of, it's not a lot, like, but we already start like to have a handful of decentralized storage solutions. And the idea around Greenfield was essentially to create this concept of storage provider and to enable sort of like collaboration without a centralized storage and also decentralized storage. So from your perspective, how do you see the landscape, both like the current one, and how do you see the potential use cases for collaboration with Greenfield?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Victor. And it's an area that we're kind of actively exploring at Storage. And so as Greenfield gets developed, we want to look at where Storage can kind of fit into this ecosystem. We think that there's a lot that Storage can bring to help onboard new developers into the ecosystem. And again, that's a kind of a key topic of exploration over the next month or so. I think the storage, the SP storage provider kind of ecosystem is really interesting. And I think that giving developers an option between various data stores, whether that's centralized data stores or decentralized data stores, will enable them to compete on kind of a level playing field. And I'm very interested to see how that plays out as this Greenfield ecosystem evolves. And so we're kind of just getting started in the exploratory phase with Greenfield, and we hope to figure out ways that there can be collaboration in the future.
What is interesting about Greenfield is that each storage provider sort of like has the ability to provide their own unique features and sort of like SLA with it. And what is like a fruitful ground for collaboration among the different decentralized and both centralized solutions will be essentially for instance, for the storage, for the storage to, should they participate as a storage provider, they can bring their unique proposition that already has been built and the value that they bring and uniqueness to the community, and still serve this and price it accordingly to the inside the Greenfield BNB sort of like storage provider marketplace.
Sure.
And essentially the user then will be able to choose, because the users can choose between different providers, so they can say, okay, so I trust Storj because they've been in the market for a while. I already been like I know the reviews, and I would like to use their architecture and their sort of like infrastructure and service support as my storage provider. And then essentially the user would still be a user of Storj, and they would have direct communication with the Storj, although like the whole thing will be wrapped like in the Greenfield in terms of programmability. So in a way, it will be like a Storj with the programmability features of provided by BNB Smart Chain. So this is like a very interesting use cases where each storage provider can still remain their own identity and brand. So sort of like also be exposed to a larger BNB chain community, but also to retain their own like diehard users in terms of what makes Storj and why they like it.
Sure. Yeah. And that's something that I think we're really excited about is kind of this, I think of it as kind of like a meta layer wrapper around different storage providers. And I think that makes Greenfield very exciting. At Storj, we have a lot of developers that develop against the BNB chain, both in the GameFi space and kind of other spaces. And we want to help enable those developers to use decentralized storage in a way that's native to their ecosystem as well.
Absolutely.
There's quite a lot of use cases, and like here we have as well, like kind of build a small landscape of what could be possible and like all the different priorities as well we have. So definitely it's quite we do look for a lot of potential partners which can help us to bring, let's say, specific UI, specific SDK as well to be able to deliver more like solutions.
I think it'd be also like nice to say or to shout out that for all the projects that already exist or plan to build in the either in the storage or some kind of infrastructure landscape, this is the time essentially to explore BNB Greenfield white paper and to try out the soon coming out testnet, essentially to provide their solution, either if they want to port the solution or to build something new. So essentially, the BNB Greenfield, as I said before, has a vision to become like a uniform platform for the programmable storage. And essentially, everything that you can do with the programmable storage, which is basically everything per se, you can do with BNB Greenfield, and solutions, supporting solutions such as indexing, such as private computing, different social graphing, identity, whatnot around this application. Definitely security, definitely content distribution networks, everything that relates to speeding up and distributing it across the world, regioning, whatnot. So all these solutions are welcome, and I guess there will be in the future a few specific either hackathons or project calls. But as of now, like, go take a look at the Greenfield white paper and essentially start building.
I don't know if any other member had like some questions around Greenfield or wanted to discuss about specific use cases you have in mind that could be used for Greenfield.
Yeah, let me share a little bit of, what's Noria will do. Right? I think that's maybe also related with maybe like Kevin can also comment, right? Because I think Kevin mentioned a very important part is provide the S3 API. Why similar API, right? Why we want to provide this kind of similar API? I believe StorageJ is thinking about to minimize the barrier for the developers, right? So how can we provide a very simple developer experience and make sure they can have very good tools, right? Very good SDK, API, right? And also can connect to all of these, existing, for example, existing EVM, right? Existing coding, right? That's super, super important. I think it will be a huge opportunity for the infra side. As I cannot see this screen. It looks a lot of the different areas, right? But absolutely, for us, we will start to try to contribute some areas, but looking forward to hear like Kevin's feedback, right, in terms of the tooling side. So because Noria, we try to provide the high performance API and also SDK, right? But based on that one, so because we already provided the like BSC RPC service, archive service, right, which is like quite fast. But when we go to the Greenfield, I think all of these need different APIs. There are storage API, Greenfield itself, blockchain access as well. So I think we need like similar as the BSC or other blockchain. Right? We need to have Explorer, right? Make sure we can get this information. However, this one may be a little bit different is because it's not only need to list the blockchain itself, like transaction, but also the cross chain, right? Because Greenfield is connected to the BSC, so this information should be listed there. That's for the Explorer part, right? Because this is typically for the developers super, super important. So we need to provide this kind of the beta Explorer there. Another way is I really like the StorageJS tooling, right? So actually, for the, especially for their like a Dropbox like UI, right? And integrate with this kind of the, bucket file system, etc. To be honest, I can find the BNB Greenfield concepts are quite similar as the StorageJ, right? I believe the BNB Chain team really get something like a seat on the shoulders of these kind of the big innovators, right? That's very, very good. I can see that, right? This kind of DApp is very useful. It means, user can manage their accounts, right? And they can manage all of their buckets, folder, group, access control, including this kind of the storage provider selection, right? Ranking and also payments into this DApp. This is very, very important for developers can manage their like any kind of the files, right? For game, they can manage their NFT related. For the streaming, they manage their media related stuff. Right? All of this material, all of this information need a very good client and developer friendly tooling there. I think for Noria, we try to start for this one, but really looking forward to hear more decentralized storage ecosystem like StorageJ, right? How do they really like building this kind of developer friendly infrastructure, right? Tooling, API, how quickly we can make sure find more community members as us, right, to build this one. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I can add more 2 cents from me. Actually, I did some research and used the storage J. I really like the not only developer friendly but also the sort of user friendly. So users can just use their social media to log in. That's really good to make the Web 2 experiences. So Ben just mentioned NodeReal is actually the access gateway to the storage J, because we are developing the Dropbox, like the DApps to allow the developers and the users start using the Greenfield. Actually, we are going to provide the basic and advanced features. Like the basic features, like the users can just check the blocks and transactions and addresses, also the storage provider information, validators information, and we can also provide the kind of the cross-chain events checking to view the cross-chain events. And advanced features for the Explorer is something that we are going to enable the smart search features based on AI technology, and also the data indexing and visualization. These kind of features will be added to the Greenfield Explorer. And for the the DApps, actually we are trying to make sure the users' experiences, developer experiences, are like the Web 2, just like the storage date. And we want to integrate the account management, for example, the login, log off, and also the support operations like the transfer and the bridge tokens, and also, of course, the management buckets and upload files, download files, and also the access management. One more thing I'd like to mention here is that because the Greenfield actually is highly smoothly integrated with the BSC, so every resources like the bucket or group or member or object changes will be measured to the BSC as a treatable NFT. So this kind of the measure is very, very important for the tokenization and increase the ownership of the data. So that's really exciting for the the data marketplace or data ownership that boosted in the Web3. So another thing is that because in the long term, I guess the storage service provider programmability is another thing we want to put more focus to provide kind of the feature that allow the developers to upload the sort of the Lambda in AWS S3, so they can do some operational tasks in the Greenfield. So this is quite interesting and exciting for the, I would say, the use cases for the Greenfield.
No, exactly. Just be mindful of the time as well. Maybe Kevin, you want to say one last things about Greenfield, and maybe I don't know if Trenches or Agent want to say anything, if they want to be a validator as well on Greenfield after being a validator on BSC, about use cases, but then we can wrap up about this discussion. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll just wrap up by saying it's really exciting to have a native storage layer that's built into the BSC blockchain that handles metadata and handles changes to the storage architecture for BNB developers. I think that that's a really great symbiotic relationship between BNB Chain and the apps that get built on it, as every single one of those apps will need storage underneath it, especially object storage for videos, pictures, binaries, and then being able to make that data distributed globally is really critical. I'll pause there.
Great. I don't know if anyone. Then you go ahead. I know you have a few questions, maybe.
Yeah, like I think Greenfield is very interesting. I think it's the first of its kind that exists, and in my mind, I can see kind of like just traditional or Web 2 kind of like companies that might be interested in such offerings. I just want to ask, like since on all this topic, right? Like in your mind, who are your so-called target audience for this specifically? Like some examples, and also what's your target kind of like storage to achieve, and last but not least, like I'm just asking this because I'm not sure whether today, in terms of capabilities on the chain, right, whether it might clutter kind of like a chain. If so, there are a lot of people doing going onto this greenfield.
So let me maybe ask part of it. So with the last mention, when you mentioned about clutter, so as we on the diagram as we saw, so the interaction of users with the greenfield storage provider is direct and it bypasses the blockchain. So in a way, there is no effect on the traffic and the size of the file and the amounts of the file. It doesn't matter for the blockchain. What does matter essentially is the programmability part, whether the applications or the users through the applications change the attributes of the files, and this does go through the BHC, and hence let's call it populate, not clutter, the transaction pool on the BHC side and on the Greenfield side. But this is something that the more the better, and this is the good problems to have if we have so much demand from the Greenfield to the BHC that it actually starts to clutter. I think this will be actually a great success for the Greenfield. But if we look at it again, like at the storage side, so the storage capabilities and features does not interact or make the blockchain any slower. So this is on one part. The ideal use case initially will be to position itself within the decentralized storage community as a good alternative with the additional added value on top of the competitors. And as a phase two, so to speak, it will be the target will be the existing applications either on the BNB Smart Chain or on any other Ethereum networks, EVM-based networks, as those are the easiest to migrate or to extend to the BNB Smart Chain. And as a sort of like midterm goal would be to bring more developers either from additional networks, not EVM compatible, or through from the Web2 developer ecosystem. So as we talked before, both Kevin and Ben, I believe, about the importance of user adoption and developer adoption, essentially, because this is sort of like it's B2B product. Users are not intended to use it directly, but rather through the application level. The fact that it is built or exposes AWS S3 kind of API makes it very easy for the Web2 developers to adopt, and this is why it will be very interesting to see how many Web2 developers consider these solutions as opposed to go directly to the AWS S3 or any other cloud solutions. Eventually, though, they can the same AWS or GCP can also participate as a service provider, as a storage provider. So we are not looking here to take users away or something, but rather to make it more decentralized and for people to have more choice, having the same API standards, so to speak, and to allow to communicate underneath with different storage providers adds value to the community as a whole and brings more value to the users. And naturally, when the users will and applications will start to look more into different features, eventually the programmability part should play eventually the major part in the decision making role, and to see that indeed this is something that is quite innovative and sort of will create a lot of new use cases that we haven't seen before. It is much more than just IPFS sort of taken and replaced, but rather we should think about it like a full like Jimmy said, so it's like Lambda with storage.
Okay, got it. Thanks. I think going to digest this and basically look through it a bit more. Probably will come back to you with more questions in the future.
Absolutely. Feel free to interact in the forum on the Greenfield topic. We have a lot of people already asking questions and already thrown different use cases. So it will be interesting to see more and more people start to exchange ideas, sort of like to brainstorm.
Great. I'm sure if you can also in time to come, generate a FAQ. You'll be also very useful for people new ledging on to find out more about BNB Greenfield.
Absolutely.
Right. So we do have a few technical FAQ already, and we are going to publish as well more, let's say, use cases FAQ for people to understand how potentially they can use it and build on top of it. Just looking at the time, I think it's a bit time to wrap up. So we have a few Q&A, which is from the community. So I'm going to reply inside the forum directly to all the questions that have been asked with extensive answers to it as well. Just be mindful, so here we have a kind of a new vision of the ecosystem for BNB. So we have the smart chain, beacon chain, ZK BNB, which is coming as well before half of this year. So we have as well some documentation which has been published recently. So I'm going to share it as well in the forum. Greenfield, Optimism, which is probably going to come as well, hopefully this year, and then BNB sidechains that is here as well. To finalize, we have as well a few online events. Not online, sorry, offline. So it's time to see each other physically again, in different regions. So feel free to join us and to meet BNB Chain, technical team and our BDs and all the community that we have. I wanted to thank everyone which was here today, especially Trenches, Node-RED, Legend, and Storgy as well. So we are going to try to do this maybe once per month or maybe twice. There's a lot of web activity that need to be discussed heavily. And I hope that you enjoyed this session. If anyone wants to say anything again, feel free to jump in.
I think this is awesome. Well done. This is very detailed, and it's great to have a channel to actually share all these things in a very concise manner.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for setting this up, and looking forward to the next one.
Cool. So I guess you are muted, Ben, if you want to say
Yeah,
something.
sorry. I think, sorry about that. I think this is very good. We talked so many different topics, and looking forward to get more deeper, information about the Greenfield, and we should get more share with the community, right? Let's keep these kind of conversations and see you around. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
See you, everyone.
Great. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Good to see you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you.
Take care. Bye.
Take care.